Welcome back, listeners to Learning from Friends. My name is Kay Curtis, your tour guide in this lovely adventure that we get to do bi-weekly together, and you are coming in on a part 2 of an episode. I'm speaking with JOEKINGATL about his social art that he has been able to share with us. This has been a 2-hour-long conversation. You have heard part 1. You got the first hour. This one, you're getting part 2, the last hour on this. So if you have not listened to part 1, please go back and listen to it because of you are missing out on some beautiful stories and inspirational events that have taken place that have led us up to this moment in JOEKINGATL's life, along with being able to share the true joy of this conversation. But before we can get back to that conversation, we got to do my mom's quote of the day. So, Mom, take it away.
Do all the good you can, by all the means you can, in all the ways you can, in all the places you can, at all the times you can, to all the people you can, as long as ever you can. John Wesley.
Thank you so much, Mom, for being able to continually bring in these great quotes that just set the tone properly for each one of these episodes. So as we step back into this episode, sit back, enjoy, and let's pick up the conversation back in the 4th Ward down in Atlanta with JOEKINGATL.
And that leads to some other stories too, because, a lot of times I'm in these neighborhoods where I don't look like the people that are around me, right? And so I try to be as respectful, and I listen, and I try not to come in and act like I'm going to give them some kind of gift by doing a mural. I really want to kind of know that they're receptive of what I'm doing, and know that what I'm doing is hopefully a reflection of their community.
Yes.
And has included some aspect of them or their community in a way that amplifies their voice or puts a spotlight on an issue that's important to them and not to me. So I never try to bring my agenda and impose it on a community. I try to come into that community and, make it known that what I'm doing is a reflection of that community.
Yeah, it's what is they're speaking to you.
A very real experience I had was driving to a mural on English Avenue, and I was on my way there, and there's a street basketball game going on, on the street that I have to get through. And the first day I pull up, and I had old Volvo with my ladders on top and my paint in the back. And, I pull up, and I'm kind of signaling the guys like, hey, I need to get through. And they just completely ignore me.
Yeah, they're like, hey, we're playing.
Yeah. And finally, like, someone, throws the ball off out of the street, and they have to go get it. And they're like, oh, okay, well, I guess we'll let you through now,
Yeah, at that point.
And then they saw me up the street, kind of doing my thing. And eventually, like, one of them walked over and said, hey, what are you painting? And I said, hey, well, I'm working with this group in your community, Street Smart Kids. We're doing a mural that they've helped design and create. It's actually got their faces on it, and it's promoting, healthy living and community engagement and all this stuff. And he's like, oh, well, that's,
that sounds like fun. Yeah.
That
cool.
sounds like fun. That's interesting. And then I said, hey, do you want to, pick up a paintbrush and help? And he's like, oh, I got to go back and play basketball. But so the next day, I see him as I'm driving down the street, and I see him wave the guy, stop and wave the guys over and interrupting a play, not just waiting till the play's over, but like, hey, we got to let this guy get through. He's got work to do, And that's the kind of experience that makes me feel good. It makes me feel like I'm doing something right, that I'm being at least respectful and considerate of the places where I'm putting myself, and not just, bringing something from another place or another world, and, an idea or an agenda or even an image, and then just inserting it somewhere and then leaving, and being like, okay, now it's yours, like, hope you like it, no, it's like,
I want this to be taken care of. You want it to be recognized here. You want it to be
when
welcome.
People see themselves in it, they're going to preserve it. They're going to protect it. They're going to, make sure that nobody messes with it.
It's not, it'll be tagged within a moment of you walking away from it.
Exactly. And I want to say that's maybe why the mural in Cabbagetown has lasted as long as it has. Yeah. It's gotten a few tags here and there, but instantly somebody calls me up, "Hey, Joe, did you see, somebody hit your wall?" And I go out there and I fix it,
Clean it and
or in
start
some
again.
cases, if I'm busy and I don't get out there right away, I've gone and somebody else has fixed it for me.
Oh, wow.
So that's when, this stuff starts to come back to you and you really start to feel like you're making a difference because obviously people are out there like,
You created a community.
yes, yes.
You created something to revolve around as a center as well, or a place to meet, or something that to look at to remind you of yourself or of the group of people around you. And that's something that is art, a collaboration as a whole. Of you're collaborating with, you worked with street smart kids, being able to have that. Look at that, what you've been able to do then with the individual that waved you aside to be able to get you to come through whenever you were trying to paint. And think about what you did it was in North Carolina or South Carolina, where you had
South Carolina.
sitting there for 10 days. Man, I can't even imagine just the stamina of how do you keep up with keeping up and staying motivated and focused and things like that. How do you do that? Like, that's something that you're constantly going, and your energy that you give off just sitting at this table. It's just like, I could go run 10 miles. Let's go. Like,
It's it can be grueling, let me say. Like there are often times, and one of the benefits to being an artist and sort of being able to work when you want to work and not work when you don't want to work is that I need more time to recover from these things than I used to when I was younger.
Yeah.
I sort of did my careers backwards. I probably should be an architect now and have been a, street artist when I was in my 20s and 30s. But so yeah,
It happened when it needed to happen.
after that
It's not-
10 days, like my feet hurt for like a month, and I didn't want to draw anything, I do get burned out because it is such an intense and intimate connection with people that it can be exhausting, and it can be emotional and it can be draining and it can be all those things. But when it's happening, it is energy all in, and there's just no way to dial that down, I guess,
Yeah. Turn the amp to 11 like they did in Spinal
Right.
Tap.
So I know I can be intense sometimes when I get geared up, and I know I can walk into a room sometimes and maybe suck all the air out of the room, just because my energy level is at that level. But I also feel like the people that need it will see it and they will, be energized by it and they will give me that energy back. And then the other people, they may come around,
Yeah.
but I also feel like, maybe they're not ready yet. Maybe there's some reason, maybe there's something going on in their lives, maybe I'm just, being a big, to do about nothing, and they're not interested. But I feel those are the people that, at least just through osmosis, they've seen something that's maybe changed an attitude a little bit or just made them realize like, oh, wow, it is kind of interesting what he's doing or how he's engaging with these people and the energy that they're giving back. And they, you do start to build these networks and these communities,
Yes.
and I think people they start to want to be a part of them. When I started doing the project, the first day was a little slow, like people were kind of figuring out, what is he doing? Why is he
What's going
drawing
on?
us? But by the end of, even by the first couple of days, like it was on the news, people were coming from Charleston and Savannah to get their portraits drawn. Like I was starting to get a line of more than I could draw in the day, and people were coming back the next day, early to get
To get in line. Just to get in
line.
line.
And so that just, again, kind of gives me the energy and the enthusiasm to do it, when sometimes it's not so easy.
That is true. That trying to find that is as artists do. That's why I think whenever we see an artist disappear for a year and like, why don't we get an album every 6 months or 10 months? Like, dude, you don't know how much heart
Yeah.
and soul went into getting that album in the first
You
place.
gotta
And then-
charge the battery back
Yeah.
up again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes logical sense, and thank you for explaining that on a level for some people that whether they hear it, like you do a very good job of whenever you're talking, you drop it down to a level that anybody can understand. I feel, and that's what I love when I'm sitting here talking to you is I can connect with your words you're saying,
Yeah.
and I can feel it whenever, even though I didn't experience it or live it firsthand, but I'm like, you're painting a good image.
Yeah.
And that's as artists, you're storytellers, you mentioned earlier as well. You're a
Right.
good storyteller that will be able to kind of connect in. And you've mentioned a bunch of different artists here around Atlanta and around the Southeast. Do you have any like artists or anyone that you want to names that you want to throw out there for people that if they're looking for something like this, that you just want to share the love for?
Yeah, I mean,
Because I'm going to put links to the ones he's mentioned already as well, just to let you guys know. So if you're looking, there will be some links in the bottom in the description. Get a look down, but let's get some more.
my oldest son Alex is obviously like one of the biggest influences and inspirations for me. And like I was saying earlier, part of the reason that I started doing this was to show him that, it wasn't too late for me because I failed in my career, and I don't really consider it a failure anymore. It was just bad time, like
Yeah.
that I was stuck in. And there were many successful people, many successful architects that didn't make it through the
True.
recession, but I didn't allow it to destroy me. It tried to, but I was able to reinvent myself and to start over again and to do something completely different from what I was doing. Used a lot of the same skills and knowledge that I, had learned as an architect. Just instead of drawing buildings, I'm drawing on them now,
Yeah,
but
you are. Yeah, you
but I
are. Gosh,
understand
how many stories is
scale,
that
and
one that you just did about 2 years ago or 3 years ago?
it's over
Oh,
100 feet
yeah,
tall and
yeah.
it's about 30 feet off the ground. So it's getting up there,
Let's get up there.
the biggest one biggest two, actually. There's two actually on that site. And then a third painting in the lobby that I got to do of Alex and his girlfriend, Emily. And so, yeah, what an amazing opportunity and transformative project that
Gosh,
was
that
for
was
me.
so cool to watch from afar.
Yeah. And so cool to watch, like right there in front of the wall. And yeah, and I think one thing that project did especially is it's given me a certain credibility, where when I have met someone like Shepard Fairey and I say, "Oh yeah, I paint, murals too." And, most of the time the first look that I get in somebody's face is like, "Oh yeah, you paint murals like
One of those
everybody
people. Come
paints
on. Yeah.
murals." And then I say, "Oh, well, here, if you want, I can show you." And I show them, a video of that mural, and they're like, "Oh, that's
Wow.
big. Wow." Yeah, like, "You did
Okay.
that?" Like, yeah, so it's, people definitely look at me differently because of that project. Now, was I capable of doing that project 10 years ago? Probably, maybe, yes and no, I
Yeah.
would say. Certainly, I didn't have the confidence to do it, to even call myself an artist when I first started doing it. But the skills I had as an architect, the planning, the logistics, the contract negotiation,
Yes.
all those other things that you don't see that go into putting paint on the wall. Those were all skills that I brought with me from my previous career, like I calculated the square foot of each color and how many coats of each
Yeah.
color might need to be, because some colors you can put one coat on, some you need to have two or three coats, depending on the base and the tint of the color.
So
Um,
much that we don't think about.
so I knew exactly how much paint I needed to order. So as a result, I didn't have a lot of waste at the end, So I'm thinking about these things. The paint's still acrylic latex paint, but I'm looking and exploring, manufacturers that create organic and natural based paints,
Yeah.
using techniques from the Renaissance, and that are just as durable as these acrylic and latex chemical paints. So I'm thinking about all those things like I was as an architect, and I'm picking, when I was picking building materials and trying to be sustainable and using good practices, I'm trying to do that with the work that I do as an artist now, and trying to, again, set an example, in this case, not just for my son, but
For everyone around.
for all the other people that are doing this. If I'm going to do this and I'm going to call it my profession, then I'm going to treat it as such. And I'm going to try and use the best practices and the safest practices that I can use. And I'm going to encourage other people, and I'm going to share that knowledge with other people and encourage them to do the same, because, it can be dangerous. Being up on scaffolding,
Yeah.
over 100 feet in the air is dangerous. There's no two ways to look at it. And accidents happen, and they've happened,
Yes.
in the past, and they will happen in the future. And the only thing you can do is try to take the right precautions to avoid those things from happening.
I will tell you, Corey was upset that he goes, when we get down here, he goes, we better be out on a, up at a cherry picker, 30 feet up in the air, recording this thing, or I'm going to be upset. My brother Corey's sitting here with us as we do the conversation. It was just kind of funny. That was whenever you're talking about scaffolding and all this stuff, I'm like, oh, I'm just going to throw that in there.
Know better, I would, invite somebody to get on the lift with me, and I take the boom arm straight up, and we, look at the sunset over the wall,
Yeah.
and I would think nothing of it. But, now I realize that's not really a good idea.
Maybe I should rethink this. But we live and we learn.
Right.
We live
now
and we
I might
learn.
just make them wear a harness and sign a waiver, but I'm still going to do it.
No, there are, oh my gosh, so many people that are not interested in art right now, or don't feel connected to art, or they're like, I don't know how to kind of get in there. How do you encourage people to appreciate and engage with art in their daily lives? How can you do that? Like, any advice for that?
So art can be
great sensei.
For me, art can be a very personal thing.
Yeah.
It can be something that you do home alone in your bedroom in your sketchbook, but it can also be a very social thing. And that's what I was experiencing, when I was out there with my son doing stuff, when I started riding my scooter and taking photographs of people. I was realizing that I'm doing, quotes, public art. I'm doing it's out in the public, but it's not about a fixed object, a sculpture. It's not about permanence. It's about while it's happening. It's about posting, going to an art show, taking a picture and posting it on social media. And then someone that follows you on social media, seeing that picture and saying, oh, is that happening tonight? And then showing up at the gallery and saying, oh, I'm here tonight because I saw your post on Instagram, and that, maybe realized it was going on, and I got inspired to come down and see it,
Yeah.
Or go to a glow performance, or come volunteer for Living Walls, I felt a direct connection. And I think it's maybe harder now because of the powers that have, taken over social media, I guess. But there was a very direct connection to your audience through your feed. And now the way things aren't really, appear in your timeline based on algorithms and not based on when they're happening, it's a little bit more difficult to do that, I think. But I had people say to me, I stopped following you because you post too much. And then I had people saying, I look forward to your posts because I don't get to go out that much, or I'm busy, with other things. And this allows me to feel connected to the arts community just through your posts and through Terry Kern's posts.
Yes. Oh gosh. Yes.
Terry is my barometer for accepting friends on social media. If someone already is connected to Terry, then I instantly accept them on my social media because I know they've been Terry approved.
There we go, stamp of approval.
It means more than that little blue, check mark or whatever on Instagram. If
what is that, certified or verified or whatever?
If you're okay with Terry, then you're okay with me.
Yep, the good old red glasses, man.
Yeah.
The iconicness.
And someone who I've painted before, for those very same reasons, because I feel that guy is such an asset to our community.
Yes.
And what he does is so important, and it was important to me. And I know there were times and events where Terry and I were the only two people there, and there were times where Terry was the only person there, and I was looking at his social media to feel like I was part of it. So yeah, I think those are the kind of people that deserve a mural or deserve some recognition. And if I have the ability to do that, then that's what I'm going to do. Yeah.
And that's amazing that there is that community here that is kind of been built as a result, in that, or Terry's stamp of approval here, of those people too, and that y'all been able to encourage many people to be able to grow in. I bet it's opened the doors for several other artists that are coming down the pipeline today, that are on the streets, that are slowly building up their name because they've seen what you've done. You're laying a foundation.
I hope, because I certainly feel like artists did that for me. They opened doors for me. I never felt like art was a competitive thing in Atlanta. I felt like the main supporters of artists were other artists. We don't have a big collector base here like they do in New York or in Miami or LA, and so it's really artists coming to other artists' shows and buying other artists' work and being supportive and encouraging and including them in their mural projects. And right now I'm working as an assistant to Jonesy ATL, on a mural project equal in scale to the Midtown Union project at Sugarloaf Parkway. So it's not beneath me to be somebody else's artist assistant,
Well, yeah.
because when they succeed, I succeed too. We all succeed,
All as a community together.
And there are plenty of walls out there and there are plenty of opportunities out there for everyone. So I don't feel, for me, it's not about quantity. I don't have to get up everywhere. I don't have to, beat everybody out for every opportunity. In fact, I've called other artists and said, hey, I don't think this project is right for me for whatever reason. I think you should do it.
This fits you.
Yeah.
This feels like this calling you.
Either if my schedule doesn't fit it or it's not the right fit for me, for another reason, like share that with somebody else, give that opportunity to somebody else. And, through karma, it's going to come back to you eventually, and, there's no, in architecture, we learn that, unlike lawyers, especially like the ambulance chasers who have their signs everywhere and ads everywhere, like architects don't advertise generally. They might put a sign up at their construction site or something, but that's usually the extent of it. And the theory there is that your work should speak for itself.
True.
Your work is a representation of you. It's really not even important your image or who you are, like it's important what your work is. And so I feel the same way about my artwork. Like I don't sign a lot of my murals. I do like put my crown on things occasionally, especially if someone asks me to. And I have signed some murals, but many times I don't because I feel like the work isn't about me. It's about that community. It's about that place. And that's what I want the focus to be on. So a lot of it for me is about taking the ego out of the art.
Yes, I love it.
And allowing other people in, whether it's through direct collaboration or just through inclusion or just through like making people feel they're a part of what's going on, And so sometimes that's just listening to people and, reacting to what people say. I've been dying to talk about this trip to Italy that I took. So this might be a good segue into
Hit it in.
But we had an exhibition for my son Alex, who passed away October 4th, 2022. He took his life. Completed suicide is the term I think that is commonly used. Art was something for him that came naturally, that just oozed out of him. And it was something that when we look back now, we realize that it kept him here for the amount of time that he was here.
Yes.
It was something that he used to help save me from my depression. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough, I guess, when times got rough for him, and it didn't keep him here. And I wondered whether I would be able to continue doing this because there was such a direct connection to him and trying to set an example for him and show him a path and show him like it's never too late. And that if you're passionate about something and you put that energy out, that, there always be like a response to that,
Yes.
And I, I now feel an obligation to continue doing it, because even though he's not here to see it or witness it or for it to be an example for him, it's an example for a lot of other people. And I feel the work that I do, the work that I choose to do is always done with intention. It's always done in a mindful way, in a considerate way. And I ask the people that work with me or that help me or that volunteer that they approach it the same way.
Always.
Yes.
Agree.
That they're present, that what they're doing, they're intentional about, and that they give it respect, not just the work, not just me, but themselves, what they're doing, the people that they're interacting with, because the last thing you want to do is pretend to be humble or pretend to be dismissive of what you do or say, well, I'm an artist. It's not really that big deal. I do other stuff too. Or like, it's not really that important to me. Or, when you disrespect what you're doing and yourself, I think when you're doing that, you can see in another person's face how it just deflates you know, it deflates what they perceive of what you're doing. And you don't, the one thing about this art world, this social art, public art, all of it, like you're putting something out in the world that didn't exist before.
True.
Right?
True.
That's a powerful thing in itself. But you don't necessarily control how other people perceive it
Yes.
and what it means to them. And what I've learned over the years is that it can mean the world to someone.
It really
and
can.
it should mean the world to you as a result, you know, like, and it could be the one thing that does save
Oh,
someone's
you're okay. You're
life.
okay. You're good. Just enjoy the walk. Yeah.
It could be the one thing that keeps someone, you know, from ending their life or from doing something, you know, I don't want to get into the whole school shootings and different things like that, but you know, like you never know the effect that you have on other people.
Yes.
And so a kind
Yep.
gesture, smile, an interaction, painting a mural of someone, you know, like all these things, they're
Seeing somebody just visually, like just
acknowledging
yeah,
somebody,
exactly.
like, yes, I see you. Yes,
Yeah.
you know, I appreciate your existence on
Yep.
this planet. And
I put a quote on my board I have a whiteboard that says right in front of my door before kids walk in, and it's a odd quote of inspiration. It could be anything. It could be one of my mom
Right.
quotes of the day, or it could be something that it's like that morning I heard something on the radio that really inspired. But I want you to think when you walk in the door, and whenever I see someone kind of stop and get a look at it, I'm like, I wonder what they're thinking. Like for me, the biggest moment of like anything of teaching, you could take away my paycheck. Please don't take my
Right.
paycheck. I like it, but you could take my paycheck. But of an aha moment when someone thinks or clicks in the brain that's a huge deal.
yeah,
And because you know that
You can
something's
see it.
happened, you can
Yeah.
see it.
yeah,
And that's the same whenever someone's been acknowledged is you don't know, you can see a pep in their step
Right,
in some
right,
ways
right.
of that because of some people go without the entire day with never seeing a smile or never seeing someone a powerful action to it. And I've had people leave me a little note on my desk that I have a little drawer of a notebook full of
Right.
reasons why I teach, little things like that, of just in order to keep me going some
Right,
days.
right.
But that is inside our schools, inside our communities. We see hundreds of people we drive by. No, sorry, thousands of people we drive by every day in our vehicles, and we cross paths with. Whether there's one person in the car, 4 people in the car, and it's I can't remember which artist said it. We are the closest in the most dangerous of spaces while driving in a car, but we're the most furthest apart than we will ever be in a car because we're passing in these quick moments, but we're not actually interacting or actually seeing the individual or acknowledge them. But we see thousands of people in a day, but truly, do we ever truly engage with them? Like kind of idea.
If they put a camera in every person's car, I think a lot of people would be ashamed of themselves, the way they act inside their
agree.
car.
I
You
agree.
know, the way they talk to other people inside their car, other drivers, you know, like, you know, there's some funny George Carlin quotes, you know, where he talks about people that go faster than you and people that go slower than you know, and the
The
terms for
commentaries we
them.
make. Hey,
Yeah.
you know,
And so, yeah, you are, it's like a mask being in a car, you know,
It is.
it's like being
It
in
is.
some kind of, other world where you can act differently than you might around other people in other environments, you know?
It's true.
I mean, that famous scene of Office Space where it starts out and he's in the car, like listening to some rap music, you know, like jamming out. And then he notices someone, you know, watching
Stiff
him
still.
and he's like stiffs up and changes the channel. Or you see some guy driving by and he's listening to like Beyonce and he's like, and turns it to Jay-Z or something real quick, you know, because he doesn't want to be caught listening to Beyonce.
And as we're going through all this, and this has been an amazing continual conversation here of we've mentioned all these different ways that you have your street art and everything out here. How can someone contact to reach out if they're curious and more of what you do or locate some of your pieces of art or something like that that's out there? Like what is some way that people can find
So my
Joe
wife,
King ATL?
my wife told me I needed to have business cards at one point. So I made a business card that had the crown on it and it said Joe King ATL. And it says, if you want to find me, you'll find me.
Oh, I
And,
love that.
It goes back to the idea of not signing the murals. It's like if somebody really wants to know who painted that mural, they're going to find out who painted it and they're going to figure out how to contact me. I have a website. You can Google me, you can find me on social media. There's ways to email me and send me direct messages and all that stuff. And I feel like for me, that's like a filter that I can put, not a barrier, I
Yeah.
don't want to call it a barrier. I would call it a filter, because for me, it's like, if you want to put in the work, you can find me, you can contact me, and I'm pretty good about responding, to people. But it also kind of allows me to not just have everybody calling me all the time and saying like, "Oh, will you paint a mural in my kid's bedroom?" Or, not that I have anything against painting murals in kids' bedrooms,
Yeah.
but it's just like, I can't be consumed with all that kind of connection all the time. So for me, I try to use the social media and the stuff as a little bit of a filter. And yeah, like I feel like I put a lot of work out in the world, and I do the legwork, and I do a lot of
You do.
research. So if people want to do some work,
They can find the
they
research
can
to
find
locate
me.
you. I
Exactly.
love that.
We still haven't talked about Italy, and I
Dude,
keep bringing it
go
up.
Italy. Let's go, man. Let's go. Let's get on a plane. Let's start flying. Italy. Let's go.
So I think I was talking about my son and our exhibition that we had of his work. Unfortunately, he didn't get to have a gallery show of his work while he was here. So we put one on in his honor, because we're not traditional people. We don't necessarily follow the norms or what, society says you're supposed to do. And we really weren't in a good place, I think, to have a memorial or anything like that immediately after his death. And so we took our time and we found a place that we were comfortable with. And we took about a month really transforming that space into, a gallery. And it was actually a studio, or it is a studio at Echo Contemporary on the west side. And we turned one of the studios into a gallery. So we were surrounded by about 20 other active studios with artists in them, and regular gallery events, so that we could be open when they would have other events, and share the work. Because the goal for us was to do something that wasn't just one night or a weekend or a month, but we originally thought 3 months, but we ended up having the space for 6 months.
Oh, nice.
And we had his work on display for 5 months. And then the last month, we invited other artists to do like a tribute show, to submit work like in his honor. Some of those artists knew him really well, like Rory Hawkins.
Mhm.
Other artists only knew him through social media, or only knew him through us,
Yeah.
talking about our son. And it was a beautiful thing, because I think the first show of his work was pretty heavy. It was the first time we were really out in public with people, talking about what had happened, talking about Alex, and sharing, his work with people. And, when you look at any artist's work, every painting is like a self-portrait. It tells a story about the person who painted it just as much as it does the subject matter.
Indeed.
And so that was difficult, looking at a lot of his work, and seeing some of the pain that he was in and the struggles that he was having, and using the art as a way to let it out. So I took my family on a vacation afterwards. And I wouldn't call it a vacation. We went to see friends, the ones that I talked about that wanted to come see us
Oh,
right
yeah. They said
away.
they would fly around the world to be able to see you. Yeah.
So I decided, after having his show, that it would be a good time for us, since we had been immersed in his work and him and everything that had happened, and we had all been grieving. And the thing you learn about grief is that it's a very individual thing
It's true.
sometimes, and everybody
It's
does it
true.
differently. And so we were sharing a house, but we were all on different schedules with our grief. And I was grieving late at night. My wife would get up early, and, she was grieving. We were all grieving all the time, but my son, had a tendency to kind of want to be in his bedroom and grieve on his own and get back to work. My wife took time away from work. I used work as a way to process my grief, but I decided that it would be good for us to travel and go see these friends and be around people that were supportive, that knew what has been going
Yeah.
on with us, and that it would be a safe place for us, and it would be somewhere other than Atlanta. We had a lot of support and a lot of love from the community here, but it also was just time to, I think, be somewhere else, be somewhere different, somewhere new. And so I felt like the travel was very important for us in that way, to have to travel together, to have to eat every meal together, to have to sleep in the same room sometimes together. I felt like that really kind of brought some strength and some unity to the grief that we were going through.
Yeah.
So that was a very healing experience. But during that process, we ended up in a city called Sestre Levante
Ooh.
on the Italian Riviera, which is like between Portofino and Cinque Terre, which are two like of these like billionaire, resort places where they park their yachts and do all that. And Siestre is still a little bit like off the beaten path. It's not quite as well known. And I just happened to meet someone here in Atlanta who was from there, grew up there, has family, spent a lot of time there, had a family home there, and
Oh,
invited
wow.
us to spend the last week of our trip there. And my son loved it. It's
It's a beautiful place over that way. I've seen,
it's
yeah.
amazing. And it's a small place, small community, so you can really, if you want to, you can get to know everyone in that community pretty quickly. And so when I was there with my family, I met some people through my friends who run a film festival
Wow.
for that region called the Riviera International Film Festival. We shared my artwork with them, and they asked if I would design the poster for the festival. And I said, I'll do it, but I want to come to the festival.
Yeah.
I want to see my poster everywhere. And I don't think they knew what to make of me or what to do with me. So they kind of, they're like, okay, well, we want you to do an artist talk. And it's scheduled
Okay.
for the last day of the festival, probably when most people are packing their bags and getting ready to head to the airport. But I said, I want to come a week before the festival, and I want to stay for 2 weeks. So I want to stay for the week-long festival, and then I want to be there a week ahead of time. So from the moment I arrived on the train and got picked up by the photographer, the main photographer for the event, I started to build this network of people. I drew the photographer who picked me up from the train station, and the next day when I saw him, I gave him his portrait. That day, he actually had his daughter with him because his wife was working, and so he brought her to work, and so I kinda hung out with him, and I don't know, I think his daughter entertained me more than I entertained her, but we drew each other, and we took pictures
Oh,
of each
yay.
other and everything, and
That's building a huge relationship just by itself right there.
right, and she ended up being sort of my plus one at the red carpet event. I picked her up and went in with the
Oh,
paparazzi, and
yay.
we got our pictures taken together,
That's awesome.
and so, like, I started going to the art store and looking for supplies. I had come And this is a perfect example too, what we were talking about earlier, is like I was nervous about, okay, I'm gonna go, I might get to paint a mural.
Yeah.
I've got to have an idea or a design ready so that when I get there, I can get to work. So I sort of did this drawing of a, young woman with her long hair intertwining with an octopus's tentacles, and it made like the shape of a heart, the octopus body and her head, but I learned that I wasn't gonna be able to paint a mural, that I
Oh,
was
wow.
lucky to be able to do a wheat paste there. So I enlarged some of my drawings to do a wheat paste.
Yeah.
But anyway, over this period of a week, I've started to make connections at the hardware store where I bought the plexiglass that I'm using to do the drawings, and then the art store where I'm getting the paper and the ink to do the portraits, and then the scuba diving store where, I'm gave me the
Where you got
mask,
the mask.
and,
Yeah.
the restaurants that I'm eating at, and just, all the people that I'm sort of collecting. I always seek out, like, I look for like a street cop that's either directing traffic or doing, just out on the street and doing a street beat or whatever. And I try to draw them or do a portrait of them because later if I get arrested, I can show the other cops like, look, I know your friend.
I know who this guy is. So like he's over here and he was on the corner of 5th and 7th, you know.
And then hopefully maybe they'll come rescue me. I don't know, but so by the time the festival started and people are arriving for the festival, I'm walking down the street and people are like, ciao, Joe,
Joe.
like,
Oh, so that's cool.
I've already know
You built
almost
everything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've kind of laid this groundwork and everybody there knows what I'm trying to do. Unlike a lot of, street art or especially graffiti art, like I'm not trying to keep it a secret. I'm sort of, it's almost like an experiment for me because people from the second I got there to the second I was actually putting the wheat paste on the wall, people were saying, "Oh, you're going to do what? Nobody's ever done that here before. Like we have this protected postcard perfect, image of a place and you're not,
You're coming in and doing this.
yeah. And I'm like, okay, and I would hear them and I'd be like, well, I'm gonna try, I'm gonna see what happens. And I gotten some, I got permission from one of the persons that owns one of the buildings on the Bay of Silence. And I get to the point where I've printed out, I've gone to the print shop and I've met the printer that did the poster, actually printed the poster.
Oh, wow.
So he took my drawings and blew them up real large, the portraits. And I'm like, okay, and I've collected portraits now from a bunch of the people in the community. So now I've kind of given up on the idea that I came with of this octopus and this young woman. And
yeah.
I'm like, what is that all about? Like I came with this kind of preconceived idea.
That is not it now.
Because I felt like I needed to have something,
Yeah.
But now I realize like, okay, what I've been doing here, drawing the people, connecting with the people, that's what I need to be presenting. That's what the people are going to support, right? Like,
yeah.
They're going to be like another octopus painting or something, whatever. Like they're not going to, have any interest in that. And so I go to install the first wheat paste and it's of two young girls that were actually from Milan who were on the beach with their parents when I was first scouting out the location.
Wow.
I had taken their photographs and then drew them, and then they were going to be, it was the weekend, so they were going to be at the beach the next day before they head back to Milan.
Yeah.
So I went the next morning to give them the drawings and they weren't there. And I panicked. I was like, oh no, I missed them.
Yeah.
The weather wasn't looking good. So I'm like, oh, they probably left early. So I went and ate lunch or breakfast and I came back and I found them. They were still there. So I gave them the portraits.
Oh, good. Yeah.
And at this point I didn't have the big faces.
You didn't have the big ideas yet. Yeah.
I was still thinking I was going to be doing a painting. So then I get to the point where I'm actually there with the paper and with the glue. And now the glue too was made by Paolo, and he's a older gentleman there who is a journalist. He writes for the Italian version of the New Yorker, which I think has a US publication in New York for Italians that live in New York and want to feel connected. He was an activist when he was younger, and he actually put up political posters.
Oh, wow.
So he had the brush and he had the recipe for the wheat paste.
Yeah.
I was looking for wallpaper sizing, which is what I use a lot of times because it's also kind of an organic product and it's usually readily available at hardware stores anywhere in the world where they put up wallpaper. But when he's like, I got the recipe, I'll make it for you. I was like, okay, that's great. So
Hi. Yes. Hi, how are y'all doing this
he's
evening?
also the, it is, yes. It's a murder mystery. It's an art mystery.
No, it's an art mystery. Art mystery is this individual here, JOEKINGATL, sitting here who's talking with us, telling us his story and sharing about who he is. So the mystery is unfolding as we're going along through the episode.
Oh my word.
And that's the cool thing.
It was a beautiful thing. And I think that's certainly not something she was expecting tonight when she went out to
and then it's invited, hey, come on down, have a seat. Let's go.
Yeah. That's really cool. And that's part of that, being open, to the universe, and what it puts in front of you and how you respond to it.
We literally had an hour and 15-minute conversation right there with a stranger that came by and sat down with us. Unfortunately, guys, I wish I could be able to share that with you all, but that's something that will not be there. But it's one of those ones that what we just experienced for the past hour and 15 that Joe, Corey, and I just had almost really summarize what we've been talking about here on the episode throughout the entirety is we sat and we had an experience with an individual. We did not know who they were. They sat down, we had a discussion, we allowed them to be themselves, we allowed things to open up, and it blossomed into this whole entire beautiful, amazing experience there. And that's what Joe does with his work whenever he's creating his pieces. And the last thing he was discussing with us was in Italy with the two women that he made for the poster to be used at a film festival.
So it almost feels strange going back to that part of the conversation again, but
it does. But that's where we left.
That's where we left off. Started putting up these faces, and I sent a message to the parents, that like, you got to come back, next weekend or whenever to the beach and see your daughters, up on this wall. And as we were getting to the third image, and I had planned to put a half a dozen or so faces up on this wall, we were interrupted by the Carabinieri. Probably not pronouncing it right, but it's the Italian. It's like a certain level of the police above like the local police, I guess. Like, so maybe it'd be like more like the state trooper.
The secret,
No, I think it's more like a state trooper would be here,
like a GSP or something like that,
versus a local city cop or something. It turned out the villa that gave us permission, the owner owned only the first 2 floors of the building.
Oh,
and we were going to keep all the stuff on those first 2 levels, but the owner of the top floor was a judge, very high level judge, and didn't even live in the building, but has enough influence that she called them and said they need to take it down right now, or I'm going to sue everybody,
Wow.
And so these 2 guys show up. One looked like he could have been my twin brother, which was amazing. And he says, "Oh, wow, we love what you're doing here. This looks really cool. Unfortunately, you've got to stop right now and you have to take it down." And we had literally, like, the glue was still wet, on the images. And, I texted the parents and said, "I don't think you need to come next weekend. It's not going to be here. I don't want to disappoint you." But so that night I kind of went out, had a few drinks with a friend there that I met, and sort of felt a little defeated. And said, well, I guess tomorrow I'm just going to get up and I'll go swimming. I can relax now. I've tried to do my thing. I guess everybody was right when they told me I wasn't going to be able to do this, and I woke up the next morning to a message that basically said, people work through the night to secure you permission for another location on the bay, even better spot on a historic building there that is a foundation owns. And so they had contacted the president of this foundation. And this is sometime in the late hours of the night, and explained what I was trying to do, and in such a way that they gained the support of this president of the foundation.
All you needed. Yeah.
Yes. And got the permission. So they, I wake up to this message saying, we've got you a spot. So again, like, I don't know where I got the energy from, because at this point I kind of let myself relax.
The community gave you the energy.
The community gave me the energy. What I realized is, at the short time that I was there, that I had talked about and met and explained what I was doing, and, and got the interest and the support of a community of people that really took over and made it possible for me to complete the work that I set out to do.
That is so cool.
I had posted that night on my Instagram a quote, a speech by Christo and Jean-Claude, and they were talking about one of their projects, and they were talking about how, it's not some president of the republic or some head of state that has commissioned these projects or wants these projects. It is pure creativity. It's inspired by the people. It's for the people. It's for everyone. And it's not permanent. And the reason it's not permanent is because permanence is the antithesis or the enemy of creativity. And it goes perfect to this idea of what we're talking about, public and social art.
Yeah.
It's not about permanence, right? It's about it not being able last forever. It's about it being something that can't stay, because permanence is the enemy of creativity, right? Like possession equals permanence, and permanence is the enemy of creativity. And that's how I felt that night when I went to bed. Like I
Yeah.
felt like, you know, the idea that I was trying to do something to like leave a mark and leave an impression,
Mhm.
leave something in a sense has a certain amount of permanence, you know, in a place, and was met with resistance. You know, I felt like, you know, that quote kind of summed it up for me. And that's the kind of quote I always refer to when I'm feeling defeated.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they saw that quote, the people that fought for me to get the permission, you know, or if they just, you know, from talking to me and hearing what I,
You
you
had
know,
to create it in a whole entire community since being there for that week or
right,
beforehand and all that building up to it.
right,
So they wanted to fight for you. They
right,
wanted to see what you have done because you had they had
right.
seen all that there.
And in a
That's
sense, it
why,
was no
yeah.
longer about me. It was no longer about my project and what I wanted to do. It was now about what they wanted, you know, and they wanted to see me succeed, and they wanted to be a part of it, you know,
yeah.
and that is the kind of art that I'm trying to make. It's not even about the paper on the wall or the painting on the wall or the mural or the whatever the result is of it. It's about building that community, building that network, having, you know, planting a seed and then letting that seed grow with that network, with that community of people. That to me, that's the art right there. That's what social art is, you
Yes. That
know?
is the definition.
The
Love it.
the paper on the wall is just the memory or the, you know, a little bit lasting, you know, the kind of impermanent impression that has been left, and that people can tell the story about now, and people can explain how it happened and why it happened and who
Yeah.
made it happen. And that's what people will end up taking away or, you know, remembering. The piece itself, you know, like the work of Christo and Jean-Claude, is there for a week or two, and then it's gone.
Yeah.
I was fortunate to travel to Paris when he wrapped the Arc de Triomphe. He didn't make it to see that happen. You know, he passed away during COVID. Not, I don't think COVID related, but his family and his heirs made sure that that project was realized. And I was just able to catch between Omicron and the first wave and the second wave. Like we were able to kind of get our anniversary trip over there. And it was a beautiful thing because we had never seen it other than in photographs
Yeah.
unwrapped. So our memory of it is
It's totally
of it
different.
wrapped. Yeah. Yeah. And to know that because we were there at that time in that place, that we got to experience and be part of an artwork that now is gone forever.
Yeah.
You know, it only exists in our memories and the memories of the people that got to experience it. That's a beautiful thing,
That's
right?
an
Like,
amazing thing.
yeah. It's not like I can take another trip over to Paris and
Let's go
see
do
the
this.
Mona
Yeah.
Lisa again or something, you know,
Exactly.
like that. And that's impermanence to me is what makes it so special, makes it so unique, you know, and makes it really for everyone, even for the people that weren't there, to just know that, you know, this happened, to me is like an exciting thing.
So beautiful. I'm so glad that we were able to get back to getting that story of Italy because we discussed a couple different times and all of a sudden we got there. And but the thing is, that's so beautiful of the whole entire process of getting to that point
Right,
throughout the
right,
entire conversation. It was
right.
like that climax that was needing to kind of be able to find to. Is there anything that maybe we missed besides the Italy thing that you want to be able to discuss here real quick?
Well, I was looking at the advice one, which I thought was great. You know, I posed it to our guest that was here,
Yes.
and
This was awesome.
I have an interesting story, chance happening. I was taking my son Alex down to Savannah to meet my friend Max from college and from Sweden, who we went to go visit back in August, and who came to visit me when I was starting my project for the first week in Italy. I was taking my son to Alex so that they could travel further on to Florida. And on the bus ride back, I was by myself, and the charger in the seat that I was sitting in didn't work. So I asked the young man sitting next to me if I could use his plug into his charger. And then we started a conversation. And it
Yeah.
turned out he was a student, a civil engineering student from France,
Oh, wow.
and he was couch surfing. And I didn't know what that term necessarily meant at the time, but he explained it to me like, you connect with people online, they have a bed or a couch or something
Something
that,
to offer for you.
yeah. And so it's not like an Airbnb where it costs a lot of money and you got the place to yourself. You're basically, a guest in someone's home or in someone's apartment. So, I was like, that's interesting. My wife's picking me up from the bus station. Would you like a ride, to the place where you're going to couch surf? And he's like, oh, of course, that would be great. So we take him over. It was on the west side somewhere in Techwood, like around
Oh,
Georgia
cool.
Tech. And we drop him off. And I said, just in case anything, goes wrong, whatever, here's my phone number, give me a call, and
Yeah.
maybe we can connect while you're here or whatever and go do something. We literally like drove around the block and he was calling us. There
Oh,
was a
wow.
communication issue where like the person I think that he was staying with was trying to tell him like, you got to be careful in this neighborhood. Like if you go out like, at night, like you could get
You can
shot in
get
the
shot.
head.
Yeah.
And he kind of, understood it as like the guy who's going to shoot him in the head or
Oh,
something. Like,
okay.
yeah, like he didn't
Gotcha. He didn't
understand
understand it.
exactly. And so he got nervous and he's like, and even if he didn't understand it, incorrectly, like just the thought
Still,
that I'm
he
in
was
an area that's
preservation.
that dangerous, like, so he called and he ended up surfing on our couch for the next 3
Yeah.
nights. And this was when I was, I had closed my practice and I was
Yeah.
not even making art yet. But I took him around the city and I was, taking him to some of the tourist attractions, but we were also just like riding MARTA and going to see, buildings and things around the city that I thought he might be interested in as a civil engineer.
Yeah.
And we were on MARTA and I saw a construction worker who I could tell was like one of the iron workers, that work up high,
Oh,
that,
yeah.
walks the
Like, you
beams and everything, and he had the patches and different stickers on his hat. And I just start talking to this guy, and I'm telling him that, I'm in architecture and he's telling me about his job and stuff. And this young kid, Jan, was, I think he was like 19 years old at the time. He goes, if you were in France and you were just talking to strangers like this, people would think you were crazy. Like, you don't just do that, like, and people here feel that way sometimes about me too. But I thought about what he had said to me that day. And before he left, I said, like, I just, and then, I have 2 young sons too at the time. And I'm telling them like, I'm trying to think like, what's some advice that I can give to this guy, Jan, that I can give to my own children
Yeah.
that doesn't sound contrived or doesn't sound like something I heard in a movie or, whatever. And so what I said to him is I said, and sort of explained who I was, and sort of
Yeah.
my approach and why I would talk to a stranger like that. And I said, when you travel, your perspective of the world grows wider.
That is true.
When you talk to someone, especially a stranger, your understanding of humanity grows deeper. And when you do something kind for someone, it gives your life purpose and meaning. And if you can just keep an open mind and an open heart, there will always be a place for you in this world. There will always be a couch to surf on. There will always be
Yes.
someone who you can connect with, who, feels the same way and has the same open heart and open mind that is going to, either help you in that moment or give you a place to crash or, be there when your couch surfing gig doesn't work out, like, so that's the advice. Like when I read this, what advice would you give anyone, like child or adult? That's what I would say to them. I would say travel, talk to strangers, do kind things for other people. And that's going to get you through life better than anything else, and education is like the one thing you can take with you wherever
Anywhere.
you
Yep.
go,
Anywhere.
and it's the one thing You could be, and Nelson Mandela is a perfect example of this. You can be locked up in a cell all by yourself in solitary confinement, but the one thing they can't take away from you is your education, your mind.
Yeah.
They can try, and they will do everything
will
in
do
their
everything they
power
can,
to
yep.
break your mind. But that is something that you have control over. So use it. Don't lose it.
And that is the best advice. Oh my gosh. Thank you for sharing that and spinning this.
A mind is a
entire
terrible
evening
thing to taste.
Oh, good old Fourth Ward delivering here this lovely evening under the stars. Great weather, great things, and great conversation. You can't beat this stuff, guys. This is why I recommend sit and do something like this. You don't have to record it as well. You can just sit out and have this conversation on your back porch. You could sit and have this conversation in your car. You could have this with a stranger that you're sitting next to on MARTA or on the plane. Open up the door and open up your heart, and it can go such a long way. And that advice is something that Learning from Friends has been all about the entire way that it's gone through. That made me start the project, would maybe continue the project, and hopefully we'll keep this project going for years and years down the road, wherever it may lead as time goes on. I don't want to go any further, Joe, from the conversation, because that is the best way to end that.
Yeah.
Like, that is the best way to kind of end this. I had to say,
I don't know
Joe,
what more to say after that.
Thank you. Like, I can't say thank you enough for spending your time with me this afternoon and evening. That started out was supposed to be an hour earlier, and then now we're later on in the afternoon and evening because of car trouble, and then all the different conversations that we've been able to have and game together. And I think we wouldn't have come to this conclusion of that final bit of advice without having had our experience with our fellow companion here earlier that was amongst us. So, Joe, thanks again for coming on and spending your evening with me. This has been beautiful.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for your interest in what I have to say. And I'm excited to hear it and share it with your audience.
And as you're listening to this, listeners, today is Joe's birthday, and the day that episode is coming out is Joe's birthday. So we're gonna send him a little happy birthday right now. I'm not gonna sing it, but I'm just gonna say, Joe, happy birthday.
Thank you, my friend.
Now, as listeners, as Joe said earlier, my contact information, I'm gonna have some links and stuff below if you want to be able to go through and try to find me. Reach out, get some information to me. I'm on some social media platforms: Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. You can be able to reach out to all those different formats here. I do have an email address listed below, which is cade, C-A-D-E, @learningfromfriends.com. As we leave out here, share this with others, whether it is with a word of mouth or whether it is with sending a text, whatever it may be. Just get it out there. Share the love that is JOEKINGATL with everyone around you. And as we leave, my key catchphrase that we all leave in here now is, if you've been around for the 80+ episodes, you're aware well what's coming next. My name is Cade Curtis, your tour guide in this lovely adventure that I like to call Learning from Friends. And most of all, don't forget, let your curiosity fly high.